Stephen Miller is in a state of crisis, and that is always something so enjoyable to watch. Donald Trump is not the only person who had a complete panicked meltdown today, because we have to keep in mind that Donald Trump's tariffs are not economic policy. They are a means to expand his authoritarian project, and who really is behind that project? It is Stephen Miller, who just had his plan ended, and someone who is really twisting the knife is Governor Gavin Newsom, and it led Miller to suffer an emotional collapse on air that we are going to get into. But again, it starts with Gavin, and not just his call out of Donald Trump's failure, but what he is now demanding in return for every single American who had their money stolen by Donald Trump's illegal taxes.
As it relates to the tariffs were illegal from day one. We were in Fresno. We were the first state. I was the first governor to announce the lawsuit with Attorney General Bonta on the illegal tariffs under the emergency authority that Donald Trump was asserting. Shocking to me that 3 members of the Supreme Court actually agreed with Donald Trump. There's nothing in the International Economic Emergencies Power Act that gives the President of the United States unilateral authority to impose a tax increase on ranchers, on farmers, on small businesses, on you and me. Donald Trump should return that money immediately. He has an obligation, $1,751 per family, but we're taxed by Donald Trump. He took hundreds of billions of dollars from working folks, from the ag community, from small businesses, for this vanity play, this illegal action. And he finally was held to account. The rule of law won out. And what did Donald Trump do? He had a tantrum today, and he decided to tax you all again across the board, 10% across the board under some new authority. He's unhinged. Donald Trump is increasingly unhinged. Even his hand-picked Supreme Court said what he was doing was lawless. And I'll end on this, because this is important. It was a coercive policy that has produced what result? You saw GDP growth in the fourth quarter. GDP has now declined under the Trump administration. Unemployment has gone up under the Trump administration. Manufacturing jobs have gone down under the Trump administration. His entire theory of the case is falling apart. And this, the most regressive sales tax in modern American history. Finally, that will come to an end. Pay us back. Put that money back in the pockets of working families and the American people.
We also have to keep in mind that it's not just the money that we were robbed of because of Donald Trump's tariffs. And by the way, I'm not usually a person who is an instant, means tester. I honestly do believe that universality in our programs of common goods is the best way to go about things. But people who are disproportionately spending their income on just strictly day-to-day purchasing and consumption, right? People who are spending their income on food, their car, gas, whatever it may be. Those people, I think, should get a bigger tariff refund, because Donald Trump has taken a bigger percentage of their spending income. Now, I think everyone should get a tariff refund check, but Donald Trump has disproportionately hurt working class Americans with these tariffs. He is taxing consumption. I am sure that rich people were able to go about the same and feel fine throughout this all. And it's not just the consumption he was going after, it's people's jobs as well, which Jessica Tarloff called out.
I'll deal with the courts later. At least then I've moved the ball down the road.
This is what Jessica doesn't understand about the strategy, is because he directs U.S. foreign policy, and foreign trade falls under foreign policy. That's why he went big, sweeping, across the board tariffs, because it knocks every other country out of their seat. They rush to Washington, D.C. and sign these deals as fast as possible. The deals are still in place. Foreign investment is still pouring in, and that's when you look at the construction activity. All of the factories are being built because as these tariffs are set, it's cheaper to build the product here so it doesn't get hit with the duty that it comes in.
100,000 manufacturing jobs.
No, we're talking about construction. That always precedes manufacturing. I'll talk to you about that later.
Donald Trump erased people's jobs. Donald Trump erased people's retirements. Donald Trump jacked up costs. And there's no amount of spin that we can see from the Fox propaganda outlet that is going to change that or change public opinion on what is already, I should say, a very unpopular position. which is why they called in their best, Stephen Miller, who thought he could change things. Yeah, it didn't go too well. He just broke down, first attacking J.B. Pritzker, who followed suit like Gavin Newsom, demanding a refund. Stephen Miller didn't like it.
President was not happy today, no doubt about it. Pretty harsh words for the members of the court who did not vote to uphold these tariffs. And now J.B. Pritzker, though, is pretty happy because he thinks now the federal government should return $1,700 per Illinois family because the tariffs were struck down.
Well, Governor Pritzker is not only economically illiterate, historically illiterate, and probably functionally illiterate, but he is also somebody whose every action and policy is designed to hurt and betray America.
Does Stephen Miller know he lost today? Is he aware of that? That he's the loser? That he's the one who's not coming out on top? Why are you attacking J.B. Pritzker? What does J.B. Pritzker not know? It seems like J.B. Pritzker knew that the Supreme Court was not going to allow Donald Trump, at least in this instance, because they do, and others to continue to break the law, to illegally jack up the cost of our groceries, of our gas, of everything, construction material. What are you saying? Why is J.B. Pritzker wrong? I don't really get that one. Stephen Miller, again, clearly melting down because this impacts him. And believe you me, there were more clips of Stephen Miller that we're going to get into. But we do have to remember that this is their mob boss tool. I think it was pretty telling who is behind what tariffs when Donald Trump talked about them today. You know, he was reading off those trade statutes and he was like, well, I know them so well. Okay. And then he talked about the ruling itself and he said, I have such great reading comprehension. Those are two statements from Donald Trump that makes me go, yeah, of course he has no idea what the fuck he's talking about. He never does. We know he's a stupid man. Let's start from that place. But there are some things that Donald Trump knows better than others, right? There are levels to this. When he talks about the ballroom, it sounds like he has a pretty sophisticated understanding, actually, because that's something he cares about, wants to get in the weeds on. I'm not saying he's a genius architect, but he knows the details. Tariffs, though. You would suspect, considering this is his thing. It was tariffs, tariffs, tariffs. It was his quite frankly favorite word. We love the word. You'd think he would know something. Not the intricacies, because again, he's a big dumb dummy, but you'd think he'd know something. He doesn't. So to me, knowing that the tariffs are a weapon for Donald Trump to puff himself up, sure. Right, he responded when Canada had that Ronald Reagan ad, Donald Trump levied tariffs. He did that because it's easy to just scream tariffs. But there's also been a very clear financial incentive for Donald Trump and his family to carry out these tariffs, right? They've used them strategically to make Donald Trump wealthier. They've used them strategically to put pressure on whether it be allies or enemies. Well, not actually enemies. They don't do that. But anyone that they think that they can get something out of, whether it be an investment or a trophy. I don't know. That's what we've seen. But Donald Trump doesn't seem like he's mentally equipped to be the one doing that. So there is someone clearly behind the scenes making those decisions, deciding what pressure to apply, right? I think that Donald Trump truly loves saying the word, not a clue what it means. No idea. Not just from the standpoint of Donald Trump doesn't know what tariffs are and what they do, we understand that. But he doesn't even know how they're operating within his own administration. And the person who probably does, Stephen Miller. The person carrying out the power is probably Stephen Miller, which is why the man so upset that his plan for expansion of that power through illegality is also attacking the domestic extremist that apparently we're so worried about today as well.
For this country, this administration under President Trump has moved heaven and earth to find the domestic extremists in this country who are trying to kidnap, murder, and assassinate and bring them to justice. While the left, being good communists, has done everything in their power to foment violence and foment hatred and foment unrest. You will never get a cleaner contrast. You want safe streets, you want criminals behind bars, you want to support the police, you want to support law enforcement, that's President Trump. The Democrats are the party of violence. President Trump is the president of law, order, and safety.
Does Stephen Miller not know that he is a domestic extremist? Is he not aware of that? Stephen, that's you, man. Like, you're a white supremacist. Like, you're a piece of shit. You are a domestic extremist. You're hurting people with your extremism. Like that's pretty clear. I thought we were all on the same page on that. So who are you talking about? Is it the radical left? Is that who you're going after, Stephen? I don't really think it's landing. What is he talking about? Why is this the angle tonight? You know how you're paying so much for groceries, says Stephen Miller, and that number only goes up and up and up, and now we want to bail out corporations or give $175 billion to Donald Trump? Well, how about also we yell about something that's not real? Is that how you're going to get out of this? You're going to scare people out of caring what the price of their groceries are? Because that hasn't worked either. People don't like your private standing military. That hasn't worked out. This is an administration full of criminals. If you want to send anyone after criminals, send them after the guy screaming and having an emotional breakdown on Fox. And I think someone who laid out the criminality of this administration so perfectly was Lawrence O'Donnell in this clip right here.
The New York Daily News, which now calls the Trump administration the most powerful crime syndicate in history, has always had strong reader support in the Queens neighborhood in New York, where Donald Trump grew up. The New York Daily News says, quote, "It is time to acknowledge what has become tragically obvious. The Trump administration is essentially acting as a massive criminal enterprise. It lies, steals, extorts, and murders, all while cloaked in the awesome authority of the state. It is on a crime spree that puts Al Capone to shame. This administration has murdered Renee Good and Alex Preddy, slandered them as domestic terrorists and assassins, and allowed their killers to walk free. Unleashed thousands of minimally trained ICE agents recruited with explicitly white supremacist messaging to inflict terror on people of color. Repeatedly violated the constitutional rights of citizens and non-citizens by arresting them for First Amendment protected speech, raiding their homes without judicial warrants and imprisoning them without due process, and killed dozens of civilians on the high seas solely on the unsubstantiated claim that they were drug runners, not that being drug runners would justify their summary executions without due process anyway. Released hundreds of imprisoned felons who brutally beat Capitol Police officers on January 6th.
These people are blatant crooks. They are criminals. And just today we reported on the fact that Elon Musk was engaging in some light to heavy election fraud in Georgia in 2024. And he should see prosecution for that. Absolutely, he should. That is a promise that I want to hear out of every single Democrat running for president and anyone who seeks to be a leader in this party. It's not political retribution. It's not a witch hunt. It is the only way to actually fix this situation. And we are going to call for that every single day on the show. Stephen Miller, you took an L today. So did Donald Trump. Good job, Governor Newsom. Good job, Governor Pritzker. I should see every Democratic governor with an invoice waiting for their check from Donald Trump. We're going to continue to cover that on this show. And if you want to support that, as always, you can hit that subscribe button, leave a like on this video. If you stuck around to the end, drop a blue heart in the comments. Keep on fighting, y'all. Don't let them silence you. Until next time, I'll see you soon.